Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So in today's episode we are going to get to work on the Mark II Supra, and we're going to start working on this engine bay and getting it prepared to be painted and prettied up enough where it will do the beautiful new engine justice when it is stuffed in here. So everything that you see here, all the accessories and everything else, all need to come out or at least be loosened so that way I can get in and scuff and get ready for paint to be applied to all of this. So this is going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a dirty job and not something that I was looking forward to doing, but it's something that is necessary as it either gets done now or it doesn't get done at all. And in looking at this more, I'll more than likely have to pull fenders off as well so I can get everything prepped underneath of this fender rail right here, as there's no sense in doing this as a half measure anywhere. I'm going to do it as right as I can here in the shop, and will more than likely actually end up building a makeshift paint booth all around this thing when it comes time to do that, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself just yet. And I have all the dirty work to do first before we can even think about applying primer and paint. So beyond this, as this is a Mark II centric episode, but there is some Mark IV progress that was made off camera. I went ahead and I ordered the other lines and fittings that I needed to, and now we have our little line from solenoid down to rail. We have the correct length line from the bottle up to the rail. I have my nitrous pressure sensor right there that I'll need to extend this little line or this little wiring harness over to. And obviously the nitrous bottle is hooked up there as well. So we have a fully plumbed, fully ready to rock nitrous system, and I guess I can go get the bottle filled at some point in the near future and then test out the purge solenoid, make sure that everything's functioning the way that it needs to. And then the nitrous system can be put to use once we get the transmission pan sealed up and I get everything reassembled. But with that being said, let's go ahead and focus our efforts on the Mark II and start pulling a bunch of this stuff off in preparation to begin prep work for the paint job. A few hours later, and the majority of the large components in the Mark II's engine bay are now removed. So this wasn't all that difficult. Probably the hardest part was getting under the dash to get the brake booster and the clutch master cylinder out, but those are both over here on the cart, as well as all of the other components that we've removed. So wiper motor, fuel pressure regulator, catch can, The mass airflow meter, booster, coil and igniter, and a whole bunch of other odds and ends are now out of the Mark II's engine bay. So there's still some things that need to be removed. I didn't mess around with this brake distribution block here, nor did I mess around with the oil filter relocation or anything on the frame rails on this side. That can be a job for tomorrow when I come in here, but I just wanted to kind of work from one corner around the engine bay that way, getting everything out and kind of keeping some semblance of order as I put everything on the cart here. So hopefully I'll be able to figure out where all of the stuff goes when it is time to reinstall all of it. But prior to that, we need to clean up and paint and pretty up all of these 40-year-old parts and get them ready to go in what is soon to be a refinished engine bay with a beautiful new engine. So with this portion of the Mark II's disassembly completed now, I'm going to get out of here for today, come back in tomorrow, and continue taking more of these components apart, continue getting more of this stuff squared away. And before too long, this thing will be ready to be cleaned and prepped and primed and everything else in order to get a nice new coat of paint in the engine bay and pretty it up, gussy it up for the new engine to go in its place. We made a good dent yesterday with pulling a bunch of components out of the Mark II's engine bay for paint prep, and there's still obviously many more components to remove at this point in time, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So I'm going to start with the busier side of the frame rail over here and then make my way over to the driver's side frame rail, which has many fewer components over here. And then we can move on to starting to remove body panels, etc., and hopefully by the end of the day today, we'll be ready to start prepping this and getting it ready for its new coat of paint. I got lucky enough yesterday where I only had issues with one fastener, and that is right here. This little M6x1 snapped off in a threaded boss in the side of the sheet metal here. So I'll end up drilling that out, and we'll probably put a riv nut in its place, and all will be well there. But that's a job to figure out at a later date, not an indefinitely later date, as that will need to be solved before paint goes down, but it isn't something that needs to be taken care of right now, so we can kind of relax on that and focus our efforts elsewhere. So now the droning is out of the way, let's go ahead, start digging into this frame rail over here, get all of this stuff removed, and then we'll be pretty well good to start pulling body panels off. I have pretty much everything out of the engine bay on the Mark II that I'm going to attempt to remove or attempt to get out of the way for this paint job. So three of the four corners are cleared up. The fourth corner is where the fuse box resides, and I'm not going to take this apart and disassemble it. I'll just figure out a way to suspend it and keep it out of the way. The heater core lines are removed. I stuffed portions of the wiring harness into the fender well on the passenger side. I did disconnect one of the AC lines, this one came apart easily. This one here, the tube nut did not want to come free of the tube, so I'm going to leave that as is and just kind of bend the line out of the way, and all should be well there. Now, This isn't going to be a perfect paint job, as I'm not a painter and I don't have a whole lot of experience doing it. But I do know some good painters, and I will use them as the subject matter experts to give me some pointers and tips and tricks, and hopefully I can do this where it doesn't come out like a complete steaming pile of garbage, but I guess we'll see when we get to that point. So since the engine bay is pretty well cleared out and ready to start cleaning, I can focus my efforts now on removing the fenders. So I haven't had the fenders off of this personally before, and hopefully it doesn't end up being too cumbersome to do with the old flip-up headlights here. I can already see there is one bolt underneath of the headlight cover here, and the whole front side of the fender, or the front corner here, has to be fastened some way, which I don't know if that will involve removing the bumper or what all removing these fenders will be comprised of. But it needs to happen, so I need to figure out how it all goes together. So let's go ahead and get to it and see just how easy or just how difficult removing the fenders on this car is. After what feels like a science project in terms of dissecting the Mark II, the fenders are now removed, the front bumper is removed, and we are ready to start prep for the paint work. So no real big issues with getting the fenders or the bumper off. If you do see little bits of orange plastic on the ground, unfortunately, and we'll take a little stroll and a little climb up a flight of stairs, look at the fenders. But these fenders, the marker lights, they have seen better days. So around this bolt hole right here, and you can see it's just disintegrating there, and the other one is not any better. So I'll need to find, or try to find, new marker lights or marker light housings, and hopefully I'll be able to do so, as a 40-year-old car, it'll be difficult to find some of those items, but I might have to call upon some old contacts and see if I can't source those covers or housings or whatever they may be for the fenders. But aside from that, the engine bay is ready to be scrubbed down, and pretty much everything that is still in here will remain in here, because I'm not going to take the braking system apart any more than it already is. I'll just bend lines out of the way, bend everything back. I'm I'm not looking for perfection with this paint job. I'm looking for presentable, and hopefully I can make that happen. We'll see. Like I said earlier, I'm not a painter, but I'll give it my best shot. And if I royally screw it up, then I'll call in reinforcements and have people that actually know what they're doing assist me in or knock this out for me. So there is quite a bit of cleanup to do. Thankfully, a lot of it is just dirt and grime from the car sitting. I'll more than likely put the wheels back on, roll this outside, and power wash the engine bay just to get the bulk of the difficult to remove stuff removed. And then from there, I can start sanding and prepping and getting everything squared away to actually put some new paint down on this thing. Now, I'll have to figure out how I want to make a paint booth here. Probably get some plastic, drape it over, maybe get a couple of stand-up shop lights or work lights, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, as there's still quite a bit of work to do before we even consider putting paint down on this thing. My cart of Mark II parts has grown a little bit. I finished off putting stuff on the top shelf here, moved down to the bottom shelf. We have the fender liners, have the front grille, the lights, license plate holder, and the oil filter relocation, among maybe a couple of other things. But that should be it for the parts that are being removed from this, at least right at this moment. And like I just said, it'll be time to roll it outside, clean it, and get ready for... Now, the prep is completed. It'll be time for the actual prep phase now, and we'll knock that out in an upcoming video. So with all that being said, and more work knocked out on the Mark II here, I think that is going to be about the end of this episode. So, as always, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Hopefully you received some enjoyment out of disassembling this old car here. I know that I did, and it's kind of cool to go through and work with old plugs, old parts, see old ways of doing things, and see how something like this ended up as something like that over there, and even into new technology that you see in showroom floor cars nowadays. So they all came from the same place, and it's just neat to see how technology and methods progress over the years. So with all of that being said, and before I ramble on incessantly, that'll be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode.